And contrary to that thought, what I've become more cognizant of is this unknown that exists and how much you can learn, right? Like from you, Jake. Like I don't know you, and I'm just so interested, right? I want to interact with you more because I feel like there's a lot of unknown stuff there, right? So that draws my curiosity. I think people need to be flexible, right? People need to be change welcoming, especially in this space, right? Black mental health. We need various what's the right word here? We need various subtle approaches to how we integrate with the world, right? But we need to do this very quick. We have to adapt very quick, and we can't be stuck in our ways and saying that, okay, I'm getting by, I'm in my comfort zone, this is what life is providing for me, and I'm just going to stick with it, right?
Yeah.
We have to be very aware of where we are, right? Firstly, linking it back to who you were, the previous generations, who they were, what they did, positioning yourself, grounding yourself, finding that identity that we spoke of, right? And then trying to frame this. I love what you said, the interdependence, not the independent, dependent, but the interdependence, fostering that self-love, right? And then saying, okay, I'm not going to get by. I'm not going to stick in this comfort zone. I'm going to get out of this comfort zone, and I'm going to venture into the unknown. And I will be flexible and accept change.
One of the things I speak regularly of is when you grow, you have to go through disequilibrium. Any developmental theorist will say that. Anybody who studies the development of anything, biological, spiritual, moral, philosophical, psychological, you have to go into disequilibrium, leave your equilibrium, go into disequilibrium in order to grow. The problem with disequilibrium is it's very scary because it's unknown. And if we're not taught good emotional functioning, we don't know what fear is. We don't know what it does for us. And so we tend to avoid it because it's scary, because being vulnerable and inviting in that scary unknown exposes us to risk. And risk could come with pain. And who wants pain? So we might as well just stay where we are, fat, dumb, and happy. Or are we really happy? You know, so that becomes the question of, is, as you described, like, is survival enough? Is just getting by enough? Or do you want to thrive? You know, it's the difference between surviving and thriving. And in order to thrive, you got to challenge things. You got to dare boldly. You got to take some risks and invite in that vulnerability and that fear that says, I don't know what's on the other side. I'm just going to work really hard. But coupled with a faith, and I love how you refer to self-love, because self-love to me refers to self-efficacy as well. It says, I've got a history and a background that says I'm going to be fine no matter what, right? So I can take this risk, and even if it hurts, even if I invite a little pain and that pain actually manifests, I will still be okay. It's not a but, it's an and, right? I will be okay, even if this thing doesn't work out the way that I intend or whatever it is. So I really appreciate that approach. I want to get back into the cultural discussion about how Black people, I think worldwide, have been, I don't know if oppression is the right word, but that's certainly the result, right? So it can sound like a verb, and it can also sound like an adjective, and it can sound like an experienced noun. So, but that's certainly the result when you got an entire swath of people globally who have experienced this sense of like only being able to do whatever my overlords allow me to do. And that's not appropriate. That's not okay. It stifles the human spirit. And I want to ask you about, like, philosophically where that comes from and why, but I don't want to go there just yet. Where I want to go is with this idea of self-efficacy and elevating oneself. I'm hearing a lot of thematic elements related to personal accountability, personal responsibility. You work in the entrepreneurship world. You work with young leaders, developing them. I'm presuming politically and for business purposes as well. And I want to hear how you approach that, because I mean, just talking to you, you're inspiring me now. I'm like, oh man, this is awesome. I got to go read some more.
Oh.
And I can only imagine being one of those students. You guys are what, 16 and 19-year-olds you work with, I think, something like that.
Yeah.
I can only imagine being one of those kids in your classes, listening to you talk and just hearing this calm, confident, deep enthusiasm that's not a rah-rah speech. It's just, this is the way it is, and I'm encouraging you. And people are like, yeah. So how specifically, like, I want to hear, books, influences, people you point to who are mentors of yours that people listening to this podcast may be able to take, that you share with your young leaders that you're developing. Like let's like kind of spread this to the world if we can. Who do you listen to? What do you do? And how do you apply this in the classroom?
Yeah. It's a vast space. Mm-hmm. And one of the beautiful things about what I do is we really leverage each other in the workspace as well. So it's not just one person, but it's an engine. It's a lot of people that are moving this cause. In the classroom, where I kind of my takeoff point or launch pad is, I want these students to experience a better life than I have, right? And immediately that sets the tone for your interaction, right? You're able to portray a best self towards them, and they're able to see the potential of what they could potentially be as well, right? Mm-hmm. There are a lot of varying different components that feed into how we shape and build these individuals. And definitely reading is important, right? We do these sessions where we put down all of our academic course material, right? And we just read, right? We read from a variety of contexts. And we call these sessions seminal readings. And I had feared, like when I first arrived at the academy, I was just like, oh no, we have to do all this reading for an entire week. I was just like, I don't want to do this. But at the same time, every step into that vulnerability made me realize, how we're building this community of strong, ethical, content-driven leaders, right? So, firstly, you're in the classroom and you want them to be better than you, right? And then tapping into the variety of contexts, different readings, and appreciating the literature, unpacking it, and sharing thought through meaningful dialogue has brought this appreciation for reading that white and black. The real secret sauce, I think the core as to what I do or what we do in the space, I think is a shared vision, right? Not everywhere you go do you find that your personal values are aligned with the institutional values and institutional structures that enable the functioning of the organization.
I don't think it's just not everywhere. I think it's very rare, actually.
It is, right? It is. It is extremely rare. And in that process, you find people that are aligning with those values, right? Mm. And once we are all sitting at the table, it is a lot easier to get the work done because we've already been doing the work, right? Yeah. We've already been shaping people in our various communities. I always say, you don't just start something, right? You've been doing it in some form or another. And then maybe this is just a variation of what it is that you've already been doing. But there are very varying connections. I'm a huge believer in signs, right? And that there are certain signs that lead you into certain pathways that enable you to see or kind of draw more reason as to where you are, or what it is that you're doing. Anyway, that's another story, but all of those people coming together, right? It's all of those values aligning and having very solid objectives, right? What it is and how you want to impact these individuals is very important as well. We also practice a great deal of autonomy, right? We don't just see these students as a 16-year-old or a 19-year-old. They are adults, young adults that are capable of doing even better than you and I, right? And we got to celebrate that. You know, we don't look at it and say, oh no, this person is a threat. Rather, we say, how can I learn from this person? So there's quite a lot of, so it's the exchange of knowledge is reciprocal, right? You're learning from the student's learning from you. And it's all done in this community or a community that's based on respect. I think around the world, one thing that kind of hinders progress is the lack of respect.
Yeah.
And respect in the sense that, you know, I'm human, you're human. We have our boundaries, but we can engage one another meaningfully towards accomplishing a set goal or a set task. And a lot of that respect is thrown out the window when people are so goal-driven and task-driven. You would work with someone, but they don't want to get to know you, right? They just want to get the task done.
Yeah, or the profit achieved, or the bottom line fattened, or yeah.
Right, and the respect goes out the window.
Right.
Or you can work with someone and primarily base the relationship on respect. And then from there, that's where the opportunities to leverage each other's strengths, to expose each other's weaknesses, and to build and further develop and grow one another thrives, right? That spirit, that joy. And that's something that's it's intangible. You feel it happening,
yeah,
and you're just like so amazed. But unfortunately, you just don't find that in a lot of places. People that visit our academy, you should visit. They'll come and say, "Wow, you guys are just so amazing." You know, it's like a bubble, right? It's like this amazing dream. Very isolated place, lovely campus, great environment. And once you're there for an extended period of time, you know, you easily fall into this, you know, that community. You feel like you're a part of the community. And once you leave, you notice it immediately as well.
Yeah, does it shock you or the students or any other faculty members to go have interactions back in, you know, quote unquote normal life where people are just rude to each other and toxic and you know, like spewing hatred? Like, is it a shock to the system? You're like, wow, we thought we were doing some good work here, but it turns out the world is still the world.
Yeah. It's shocking, man, what's out there. And, you know, we got to protect our students as well. But here's the thing, right? We're doing this so that we can have kind of like sleeper cells of these type of people in the world, right? This wide range of people that are like-minded, have been through the same systems, and, you know, are agents of change, right? And the more we draw people in and teach this, and I don't even know if we're teaching it, it's like we're living it, right? And see how we're living this and embody these values. The more, I guess, or the more the world will potentially start to change, right? I belong in a certain community. You belong in a certain community, or rather not belong, but come from a certain community. I think we belong anywhere. And you'll go back into that community and you start tapping into that community, and you'll spread this, this what you've learned, right? It just happens tacitly. And hopefully you're making change, or you're impacting people meaningfully. And they will learn from that. You know?
How do you keep hope and enthusiasm alive? You personally, your students as they graduate, because I assume you keep in touch with them, some of them you've mentored, friends, family, when that's not the norm. The norm is constant aggression,